Michael Todd is known for pulling in some of the ugliest positions you've ever seen. Just looking at some of his matches, it's difficult to understand how on earth his arm doesn't just snap in half. But as far as I know, to this date, Michael has never broken his right arm in a match. In this video, we're going to look at two of the most disgusting matches in Michael Todd's career. Starting off with Michael Todd versus Yoshi Kanai. In this match, Michael's going to try to set a hook and get the match into an arm-on-arm position. And right off the bat, even though this isn't necessarily the ugliest position for Michael Todd, this already isn't great. You can see that Michael is committing his shoulder in a very open position. He actually is able to set the hook in this match, but Yoshi just has way too much rotation and he's able to rotate Michael down to the pin pad. Michael's extremely over-supinated and he's still trying to commit that shoulder, so this is already pretty ugly, but we are just getting warmed up. This is nothing compared to the ugliness we're going to see later in the rounds. Going into round 2, we see that Michael hits a little bit more outside this time, and Yoshi is not quite getting a full cup in here, so Michael is doing a pretty good job of maintaining some sort of outside pressure into Yoshi's wrist flexion, but we're going to see a pretty cool move here from Yoshi. You can see that he's at the back of the pad, and what he does in order to control Michael's pronator is he actually shoots forward. And by doing this, he's able to roll over the top of Michael Todd. This is a move that people like Neil Pickup have used quite a bit, and it's really effective because instead of Yoshi trying to rely on his musculature and just bend his wrist against Michael's top roll, instead he's able to use his entire body to fight against Michael's pronator. He shoves his elbow forward and just rolls right over the top of Michael's pronator, and there's nothing Michael's going to be able to do from that position. And then once Yoshi establishes his cup using his structure, he's able to roll back out, rotate Michael down to the pin pad, and get the pin in this lane. Pretty ugly, but we still haven't seen anything crazy from Michael Todd. Round 3 is going to get a little bit worse, and in this round we're going to see Michael try to hook Yoshi once again outside of straps. Yoshi's going to rotate him down toward the pin pad, and we really see Michael starting to get super twisted up. He's committing that shoulder, even though he's in a super terrible losing position. He's just rolling, he's twisting even more so and starting to go into full break arm position. But he gets pinned before anything too crazy happens. In round 4, Michael is going to attempt once again to shoot forward and set the hook. We see him crashing down onto Yoshi's pronator, crashing down onto Yoshi's bicep. But unfortunately, Yoshi just has way too much back pressure, so even though Michael's able to get a little bit of a bite, it's not going to matter. Yoshi's going to take full hand control from Michael in this match, and he's going to start to climb up and over the top, and this is going to get really, really ugly here. Michael is going to try to use that side pressure once again, and Yoshi, shockingly, is still unable to get through, even though he has a really good position. Michael's elbow is just so strong. So even from here, Yoshi's going to have to climb further, and he climbs even further out onto the hand of Michael Todd, and this position just looks horrible. Michael's pronator is being controlled pretty well by Yoshi at this point, and Yoshi is just way out onto his fingertips, so not only is Michael Todd in pretty much a full break arm position, but he's also in a break wrist position. His wrist is getting twisted down super hard, so there are multiple things that could go very wrong for Michael Todd in this round, but Yoshi is able to transition to the press and get the pin. And despite how ugly this position is, it's still going to get even worse going forward. Once again, Michael commits as hard as he can to try to get his wrist bent, to try to chop down, use supination, and get access to Yoshi's bicep, but he just can't quite do so. He's already twisting up super hard, but he does have a little bit of flat wrist. He's not totally cracked back, so he has some sort of connection to Yoshi's arm through the lower part of his palm through his supination. But Yoshi is not really in a ton of trouble here. He knows how to climb and get around this. And we're going to see Michael continue to commit his shoulder even harder. So at this point, Michael is committing his shoulder. He's driving forward and up, and he's getting completely turned palm up. And as we switch back to this other camera angle, you can see how disgusting this position is. Michael's arm is literally at a 90-degree angle going sideways. I don't think I've ever seen anyone else quite pull in this lane. There's just a massive amount of spiraling force being placed on Michael Todd's humerus at this moment, but it's just going to get even worse because instead of Michael trying to do some sort of reversal or get out of this position, he's only going to commit his shoulder even harder. You can see that Michael twists even more. He brings his elbow further toward his own pin pad, and he twists his shoulder even more so. And now his arm is so far back, it's completely outside of his shoulder. I didn't even know that it was possible for his arm to twist into this position. This is so far beyond break arm position, you would think that anyone's arm would break from this point, but somehow Michael Todd's humerus is just completely invincible. As this match goes on, Yoshi does end up winning every single round. Michael isn't ever able to get a pin, but Michael's will to win in this match was clearly there, and he tried everything that he possibly could in order to do something in this match. Moving on to our second Michael Todd match, we have Michael versus Frank Lamparelli. Now there's a little bit of a trick going on here. Frank might look like he's kind of short in this match. He's actually way taller than Michael is, but he likes to really squat down and get super far underneath the table, kind of like Vitaly Laletin does, in order to generate as much height and as much rocking, posting back pressure as he can. So we have Frank with the top roll versus Michael with somewhat of a top roll, but really more so a Todd Hutchings style side pressure. Now right off the go, Michael's going to fire sideways, and Frank's going to do a good job of getting the catch, and he's also going to begin to rotate over the top of Michael and control his pronator, so he doesn't have the ability to put pressure out the back of the match, but he has to go directly underneath and through Frank's hit. And as Frank rolls over to the side, this is going to leave Michael in a super ugly, terrible position. The only thing that he can do here is just use a crazy break arm side pressure and just try to rotate through everything. He doesn't have any kind of lane to escape either underneath or out the back for this match, and Frank is going to end up getting this pin here. But one of the things about this style from Michael Todd is because of the fact that it is so dangerous, because of the fact that he's using a break arm position, this also means that it is incredibly efficient. So the longer that Michael Todd can drag this match out, the better chances he has of gassing his opponent out and being able to do something. You can see that every single time he hits, he's putting a ton of wear and tear onto Frank Lamparelli's elbow flexor. And Michael is also putting quite a bit of wear and tear into Frank's cup as well, because as Frank tries to drag out and finish on the back corner of the pad, that's going to start putting a lot of torque into his wrist. And you can see that already he isn't able to get a super huge amount of cup. He's only partially able to bend his wrist against Michael, and both of these factors are going to contribute to him gassing out over time. Michael is committing so hard in that break arm position, but as we can see, this is Frank's elbow flexor versus Michael's humerus, and if Michael's humerus just doesn't break, Frank's elbow flexor is going to gas out way before Michael's humerus does, because bones don't get tired, but muscles do. So if Frank can't finish Michael in this match, it's going to start to swing in the favor of Michael Todd, and Frank isn't going to have a lot of options left. Now as Frank comes back up on the hit, Michael tries to get behind and wedge his shoulder in and go for a press, but Frank's elbow flexor still has enough to prevent that from happening. He still has enough of a side pressure hit, and he's able to hit past that shoulder and just barely get the pin before Michael can go back out into his Todd roll thing. And so this is going to be 2-0 in favor of Frank Lamparelli at the moment. Round 3 is where everything's going to start to turn around. As we saw, this match is just slowly but surely swinging in the favor of Michael Todd because of his efficient strategy, and he's using his side pressure versus Frank's elbow flexion, and Frank just can't quite get as close as he was in the previous rounds. He's right there, he's right next to the pin pad, but Michael is putting more and more wear and tear on that elbow flexor every time Frank has to hit, and he fails to get a pin. He's getting stretched out just a little bit, and eventually Michael is able to successfully commit that shoulder, and you can see that this time when he commits it, Frank's elbow flexor angle is significantly more open than it was in the previous rounds. And now he doesn't have an answer for this. Michael is able to press him down and rip through that elbow flexor and get the win. So the score is now 2-1 in favor of Frank, but Michael is beginning to make a comeback. Same exact thing in round 4. Michael's exploding off the go, and this time you can see we're pretty much in the same position we have been in the previous rounds, but now Frank is just not quite as close to the pin pad as he has been. His side pressure is starting to gas out, and his elbow flexor is starting to gas out, and this is all playing into the favor of Michael Todd. Michael is in that terrible, ugly position, but that ugly position is the very thing that is giving him effective endurance in this match, and he's just going to slowly bleed Frank out. He's going to open that elbow flexor. Every time he hits, Frank's elbow flexor opens just a little bit more, and as soon as he gets him to the B side of the table, he's able to bring his shoulder behind his hand, isolate Frank's bicep, and rotate him down for the pin, and now it's going to be all tied up 2-2, and Michael Todd is looking poised to win this match. match. And in the final round, we see the exact same thing, Michael firing off the go, and he is able to get a little bit of chop onto Frank's bicep. Now Frank does take full hand control, and you can see that in this round, he actually does maybe even a better job of getting a higher degree of cup secured against Michael. Michael's pronator is being more controlled in this match than it has been in some of the other rounds, but still Frank just does not have enough side pressure and elbow flexion in order to get that match all the way down to the pin pad. You can see that Frank is thinking about coming forward and trying to press, but he just doesn't quite have enough confidence from this more stretched out position. Once again, we can see Michael in this full break arm position, but he is continuing to put miles into Frank's elbow flexor and into his hand and wrist, and eventually Frank is just going to have nothing left. He's hitting, but every time he hits, he's ripping his own elbow flexor open. And the last time he hits and tries to rip Michael across the table, that's the very thing Michael needs to commit his own shoulder, and he's able to press Frank down for the pin, and he's able to get the win in this match 3-2. So let me know what you guys think about Michael Todd's crazy technique. Of course, I would never recommend a newer puller to try to use a technique like this, but in the end, I do think that it's pretty awesome.